He found her on a blind date, sat down and said, "You're leaving with me." My name is Sophie Bennett, and I'm 26 years old. I work as a graphic designer in Seattle. This story is about how a blind date became a command that changed my life. It started 4 months ago. My best friend Rachel set me up. She insisted I needed to get back out there after a bad breakup 6 months earlier. "You need to meet someone," Rachel said. "I have the perfect guy." "I don't want to be set up," I argued. "Just one date," Rachel insisted. "His name is Marcus. He's a friend of my husband, successful, handsome, nice." "Fine," I agreed. One date. The date was set for Friday night at a restaurant downtown. I was nervous, hadn't been on a date in over a year, wasn't sure I was ready. I arrived 5 minutes early, sat at the bar, ordered a drink to calm my nerves. That's when he walked in. Marcus Kane, 32 years old, tall, dark suit, confident walk. He scanned the restaurant. His eyes landed on me. He walked straight over. "Sophie?" he asked. "That's me," I confirmed. "Marcus," he said. Then something unexpected happened. He looked at me for a long moment, like he was assessing something. Then he spoke. "You're leaving with me," Marcus said. "What?" I asked, confused. "You're leaving with me," Marcus repeated. "We're not staying here." "Excuse me?" I said. "This place is wrong," Marcus explained. "Too loud, too crowded, too generic. I know somewhere better." "You can't just decide that," I argued. "I just did," Marcus replied. "Get your coat." "This is our first meeting," I pointed out. "You don't get to make demands." "It's not a demand," Marcus corrected. "It's a statement. You're leaving with me, because I can already tell this place isn't right for us." I should have been offended, should have walked out, but something about his confidence was magnetic. "Okay," I said. "Where are we going?" "You'll see," Marcus replied. We left the restaurant, got into his car, a sleek black Mercedes. He drove without explaining. After 15 minutes, we pulled up to a small Italian place, family-owned, quiet, intimate. "This is better," Marcus said. "Trust me." We went inside. The owner greeted Marcus by name, clearly a regular. We sat at a corner table, away from everyone else. "So you just decided to change our plans?" I asked. "I did," Marcus confirmed. "You're not angry?" I pressed. "I should be," I admitted, "but I'm curious. Why did you do that?" "Because the moment I saw you," Marcus explained, "I knew." "Knew what?" I asked. "That you're different," Marcus said. "Special, and special people don't deserve generic first dates." "That's presumptuous," I pointed out. "It's honest," Marcus corrected. We talked through dinner, about everything, work, life, goals, dreams. Marcus was intense, direct, didn't play games. At the end of the night, he drove me home. "I had a good time," I said. "So did I," Marcus agreed. "Can I see you again?" I asked. "Tomorrow," Marcus replied. "Tomorrow?" I repeated. "Too soon?" Marcus asked. "No," I said. "Tomorrow works." The next night, Marcus picked me up. Same confidence, same intensity. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere you'll like," Marcus said. "Trust me." He took me to an art gallery, opening night for a new exhibit. "How did you know I'd like this?" I asked. "You're a designer," Marcus said. "You appreciate art. This seemed right." It was right. We spent hours looking at paintings, talking about technique, about meaning, about everything. Marcus walked me to my door. "Can I see you again?" I asked. "Monday," Marcus said. "I'm busy Sunday." "Okay," I agreed. "Monday." On Monday, Marcus took me to a jazz club. On Wednesday, a cooking class. On Friday, a hike with a view of the city. Each date was different, thoughtful, planned around what he thought I'd enjoy. 2 weeks after that first blind date, I asked him about it. "About what?" Marcus replied. "About how you just decided I was leaving with you," I explained. "That was bold." "It was necessary," Marcus said. "Why?" I asked. "Because I knew," Marcus explained, "the moment I saw you, that you were it." "It?" I pressed. "The one I'd been looking for," Marcus clarified. "You can't know that from looking at someone," I argued. "I could," Marcus replied. "I did." "That's crazy," I said. "Maybe," Marcus agreed, "but I was right, wasn't I?" 3 weeks after our first date, Marcus asked me to be his girlfriend, officially. We were at his apartment, having dinner. "I want you to be mine," Marcus said. "I am yours," I replied. Officially, Marcus clarified. No more dating other people. I'm not dating other people, I said. Good, Marcus replied. Neither am I. 1 month after that blind date, I met Marcus's family, his parents, his sister. They were welcoming, but clearly surprised. Marcus doesn't bring women home, his sister told me. Why not? I asked. Because he's picky, she explained. Hasn't had a serious girlfriend in years. Why me? I pressed. You'll have to ask him, she said. I asked him later. Why me? I said. Why did you decide that first night I was leaving with you? Because you were worth it, Marcus explained. Worth what? I asked. Worth taking a chance, Marcus said. Worth being bold. Worth possibly looking crazy. But what if I had said no?
I pressed. Then I would have looked like an idiot, Marcus admitted. But you didn't say no. No, I didn't, I agreed. 2 months after our first date, Marcus asked me to move in. We were at my apartment, packing for a weekend trip. Move in with me, he said. What? I asked. Move in with me, Marcus repeated. Your lease is up next month. Don't renew it. Move in with me. That's fast, I pointed out. So? Marcus asked. We've known each other 2 months, I said. I've known you're the one since the first night, Marcus replied. That doesn't make this less crazy, I argued. Does it feel crazy? Marcus asked. No, I admitted. It feels right. Then do it, Marcus urged. Move in. Take the risk. I moved in 3 weeks later. Not because it made sense, but because Marcus was right. It felt right. 3 months after our blind date, we were living together, falling into routines, learning each other's habits. This is good, I told Marcus one night. It is, he agreed. I'm glad you dragged me out of that restaurant, I said. I didn't drag you, Marcus corrected. You chose to come. Because you told me I was leaving with you, I said. I stated a fact, Marcus replied. You could have said no. But I didn't, I said. Because you knew too, Marcus said. Knew what? I asked. That this was right, Marcus explained. That we were right. 4 months after our first date, Marcus proposed. We were back at that Italian restaurant where he took me on our real first date. I have a question, Marcus said. Okay, I replied. Marry me, Marcus said. What? I asked, shocked. Marry me, Marcus repeated, pulling out a ring. This is fast, I said. So was telling you that you were leaving with me, Marcus replied. And that worked out. This is different, I argued. This is bigger. The principle is the same, Marcus said. I know what I want. I'm not afraid to go after it. What if I'm not ready? I asked. Are you? Marcus pressed. I don't know, I admitted. Let me help you know, Marcus said. I love you. I've loved you since that first night. I want to spend my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning, go to sleep next to you every night, build something real with you. So marry me. I said yes, not because it made sense, but because Marcus was right again. 5 months after that blind date, we got married. Small ceremony, close friends and family. In my vows, I talked about that first night. 5 months ago, I said, I went on a blind date. A man I'd never met walked up to me, looked at me, and said, "You're leaving with me." I should have been offended, should have walked out, but something about his confidence, his certainty, his boldness made me say yes. That yes changed my life, led to this moment, to marrying the man who knew from the first second that we were meant to be together. In his vows, Marcus talked about knowing. 5 months ago, he said, I walked into a restaurant for a blind date, saw a beautiful woman sitting at the bar, and I knew she was special, knew the planned date wasn't good enough, knew I had to take control, so I told her she was leaving with me. Bold? Yes. Risky? Absolutely. But necessary, because Sophie deserved better than generic, deserved thoughtfulness, deserved someone who knew her worth from the first moment. I knew, and I wasn't afraid to act on it. 6 months after that blind date, we were married and living our life together. People would ask about our story, about how fast everything moved. Doesn't it scare you? They'd ask, how quickly you got married? No, I'd say, because it felt right from the beginning. But what if it had been wrong? They'd press. Then I would have learned something, I'd reply. But it wasn't wrong. 7 months after our first date, I got pregnant.
Unplanned, but not unwelcome. We were at home. I took the test, walked into the living room where Marcus was working. "I'm pregnant," I said. Marcus looked up. "Okay," he said. "Just okay?" I asked. "I'm processing," Marcus admitted. "Are you happy?" I pressed. "Yes," Marcus said, surprised but happy. "Are you?" "I'm terrified," I confessed. "Of what?" Marcus asked. "Of everything changing," I said. "It will change," Marcus agreed, "but we'll handle it." 8 months after that blind date, we told our families. Marcus's mother cried, happy tears. His father shook his hand. My parents were thrilled. "You're building a life so fast," my mother said. "I know," I agreed. "Does it feel too fast?" she asked. "No," I replied. "It feels exactly right." Our daughter was born 9 months later, 14 months after our first date. We named her Lily. "She's perfect," Marcus kept saying. "She is," I agreed. "I can't believe we made her," Marcus said. "I can," I replied. "You're the kind of person who decides something and makes it happen." "Is that a compliment?" Marcus asked. "It's an observation," I said. "But also yes." 15 months after that blind date, we were adjusting to parenthood, learning to be a family. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked Marcus one night. "Regret what?" he replied. "How fast we moved," I explained. "Never," Marcus said. "Why would I regret the best decision I ever made?" "What if it had gone wrong?" I pressed. "It didn't," Marcus said.
But it could have, I argued. "Life is full of could-haves," Marcus replied. "I don't live in could-haves, I live in what is." "And what is?" I asked. "Is that I saw you," Marcus said, "knew you were special, took a chance, and built a life with you. No regrets." 18 months after our first date, we bought a house, something bigger, room for Lily to grow. "This is ours," Marcus said, standing in the empty living room. "It is," I agreed, "our family home." 2 years after that blind date, we celebrated our daughter's first birthday, our anniversary approaching. "Can you believe it's been 2 years?" I asked Marcus. "Since what?" he replied. "Since you told me I was leaving with you," I said. "Feels like yesterday," Marcus said. "Feels like forever," I countered. "Both," Marcus agreed. "It feels like both." 3 years after that blind date, we had another baby, a son. We named him Jack. 2 kids, I said, in 3 years. "We move fast," Marcus joked. "We do," I agreed. "Do you ever wish we had slowed down?" Marcus asked. "No," I said. "Do you?" "Never," Marcus replied. "This is exactly what I wanted from that first night." 4 years after our first date, both kids were growing. Lily starting preschool, Jack learning to walk. "When did we become parents?" I asked Marcus. "The moment Lily was born," he replied. "No, I mean really parents," I clarified. "People responsible for tiny humans." "We were always going to be those people," Marcus said. "Why?" I asked. "Because we're the kind of people who commit fully," Marcus explained, "who jump in, who don't do things halfway." "That's true," I agreed. 5 years after that blind date, we celebrated. Half a decade since Marcus walked into that restaurant. In my speech, I talked about 5 years. 5 years ago, I said, a man told me I was leaving with him. I thought he was crazy, arrogant, too much, but I was also intrigued, so I said yes. That yes led to this life, these children, this family, this happiness. I wouldn't change a single thing. Marcus's speech was about certainty. 5 years ago, he said, I was certain about something, that the woman I was about to meet was special, that I needed to take control of our first meeting, that being bold was worth the risk. I was right. 5 years later, I'm still certain about Sophie, about us, about this family. That certainty hasn't wavered, not once. 6 years after our first date, Lily started asking questions. How did you meet Daddy? She asked. On a blind date, I explained. What's a blind date? Lily pressed. When someone sets you up with someone you don't know, I said. Did you like him? Lily asked. Right away, I confirmed. What did he say? Lily pressed. He told me I was leaving with him, I explained. That's weird, Lily said. It was, I agreed, but also perfect. 7 years after that blind date, Marcus got promoted.
More responsibility, more travel, more stress. I feel like I'm missing everything, he said. You're not, I assured him. I am, Marcus insisted. The kids are growing up. You're handling everything. I'm just working. You're providing for us, I said. That's important too. I didn't tell you that you were leaving with me just to work all the time, Marcus replied. I told you that because I wanted a life with you. Then adjust your schedule, I suggested. Make time for the life you wanted. Marcus cut back his hours, started working from home more, being present. 8 years after our first date, we renewed our vows, not because we needed to, but because we wanted to. In my vows, I talked about 8 years. 8 years ago, I said, someone told me I was leaving with them. I could have refused, could have been offended, could have walked away, but I didn't, because sometimes the best things come from saying yes to uncertainty, from trusting someone's conviction, from taking a leap. In his vows, Marcus talked about never doubting. 8 years ago, he said, I told Sophie she was leaving with me. I knew it was bold, knew it was risky, but I also knew it was right. 8 years later, I still know. Every day I wake up knowing I made the right call, that telling her to come with me was the best thing I ever did. 9 years after that blind date, Jack started school. Both kids in school now, the house quieter during the day. What do we do with all this time? I joked. Whatever we want, Marcus said. We started having lunch dates, taking afternoon walks, reconnecting as a couple. 10 years after our first date, we threw a massive party. A decade since that blind date, since Marcus said, "You're leaving with me." In my speech, I reflected on 10 years. 10 years ago, I said, I was nervous, uncertain, scared of dating again. Then someone walked into my life with absolute certainty, told me I was leaving with him, changed everything. These 10 years have been incredible, fast, intense, full, but incredible, all because I said yes to someone's boldness. Marcus's speech was about no regrets. 10 years ago, he said, I took a risk, told someone I barely knew that she was leaving with me. Could have gone terribly wrong, could have made me look like an arrogant jerk, but it didn't, because Sophie saw past the boldness to the certainty underneath. She trusted that certainty, built a life with me. 10 years later, I have no regrets, not one. After the party, we sat together. 10 years, I said. A decade since you commanded me to leave with you. Best command I ever gave, Marcus replied. You were so sure, I said. I was, Marcus confirmed. How? I asked. How were you so certain? Because I trust my instincts, Marcus explained. And my instincts said you were it. They were right, I said. They were, Marcus agreed. 11 years after that blind date, Lily became a teenager. Suddenly interested in boys. Dating. I don't know if I'm ready for this, I told Marcus. For what? He asked. For her dating, I said. She's 13. Welcome to payback, Marcus joked. For what? I asked. For all the times I've been overprotective, Marcus explained. Now you get to be the worried parent. 12 years after our first date, we faced our first major challenge. Marcus's father got sick. Cancer. Aggressive. Marcus was devastated. I don't know how to do this, he said. Do what? I asked. Watch him die, Marcus admitted. You don't do it alone, I said. I'm here. Marcus leaned on me, for the first time really letting me support him. His father passed away 6 months later, 12.5 years after our first meeting. I miss him, Marcus said. I know, I replied. He was proud of you, I said. Proud of what we built. He told me once, Marcus said, about that first date. What did he tell you? I asked. That I was crazy, Marcus explained. That telling you to leave with me was insane, but that it worked. That sometimes bold moves pay off. He was right, I said. 13 years after that blind date, Jack became interested in sports. Soccer, basketball, baseball. We spent weekends at games. When did we become those parents? I asked Marcus. The moment we had kids, he replied. I mean, really those parents, I clarified. The ones whose lives revolve around their children's activities. That's what being a parent means, Marcus said. your life revolving around them. 14 years after our first date, Marcus had a health scare. High blood pressure, stress. You need to slow down, the doctor said. I'm trying, Marcus replied. Try harder, the doctor said. Your family needs you healthy. Marcus started exercising, eating better, taking care of himself. 15 years after that blind date, we celebrated again. 15 years since Marcus walked in, since he told me I was leaving with him. In my speech, I talked about 15 years. 15 years ago, I said, someone told me I was leaving with them. It was presumptuous, bold, crazy, but it was also exactly what I needed. Someone certain when I was uncertain. Someone bold when I was scared. Someone willing to take control when I couldn't. These 15 years have taught me something, that sometimes the best things come from unlikely beginnings, from bold statements, from taking chances. Marcus's speech was about consistency. 15 years ago, he said, I told Sophie she was leaving with me. It was bold, maybe too bold, but I knew, and I acted on that knowing. 15 years later, I'm still acting on that same knowing, still certain, still bold, still absolutely sure that telling her to come with me was the right move. 16 years after our first date, Lily graduated high school, going to college, leaving home. I'm not ready for this, I told Marcus. She's ready, Marcus said. That's not what I mean, I replied. I'm not ready to let her go. She's not going far, Marcus reminded me, just 2 hours away. That's too far, I argued. She'll come home on weekends. 17 years after that blind date, Jack became a teenager, suddenly taller than me, deeper voice. When did he grow up? I asked Marcus. Gradually, Marcus said. Then, all at once. 18 years after our first date, we were empty nesters. Lily at college, Jack busy with friends, the house quiet again. It's just us, I said. Like the beginning, Marcus agreed. Except we're older, I said. Wiser, Marcus corrected. More scarred. But still us, I said. Still us, Marcus confirmed. 19 years after that blind date, Marcus retired early, from the job that had consumed him for years. What are you going to do? I asked. Enjoy life, Marcus said, with you. 20 years after our first date, we threw our biggest party yet. 2 decades since that blind date, since Marcus said, "You're leaving with me." In my speech, I reflected on 20 years. 20 years ago, I said, a stranger told me I was leaving with him. I should have been offended, should have refused, but something about his certainty, his boldness, his absolute conviction made me trust him. That trust built 2 decades, built a marriage, a family, a life. I wouldn't change anything. Marcus's speech was emotional. 20 years ago, he said, I made a split-second decision to take control of a blind date, to tell someone they were leaving with me, to be bold when I could have been safe. That decision changed my life, built everything I have, everything I am. 20 years later, I'm grateful I was bold, grateful Sophie trusted me, grateful for every moment since. After the party, we sat alone. 20 years, I said. 2 decades since you walked in and changed my life. Our lives, Marcus corrected. You changed mine too. How? I asked. By trusting me, Marcus said. By saying yes when you could have said no. By building this life with me. I'm glad I said yes, I told him. Me too, Marcus agreed. 21 years after that blind date, Lily got engaged to someone she met in college. Our baby is getting married, I said. She's not a baby anymore, Marcus replied. She'll always be our baby, I argued. Fair enough, Marcus agreed. 22 years after our first date, we attended Lily's wedding. I cried through the ceremony. You okay? Marcus whispered. Just remembering our wedding, I replied. How fast it was, how certain you were. I'm still certain, Marcus said. 23 years after that blind date, we became grandparents. Lily had a baby girl, named after me, Little Sophie. She's perfect, Marcus kept saying, holding his granddaughter, just like her grandmother. I'm a grandmother, I said. That sounds so old. We are old, Marcus joked. Speak for yourself, I replied. 24 years after our first date, Jack graduated college, started his career. Both kids launched into adult life. We did it, I told Marcus. Did what? He asked. Raised them, I explained. Got them to adulthood. We did, Marcus agreed, though you did most of it. We both did, I corrected. 25 years after that blind date, we renewed our vows again. A quarter century since Marcus told me I was leaving with him. In my vows, I talked about 25 years. 25 years ago, I said, someone made a decision for me, told me I was leaving with him, took control of our first meeting. I could have been angry, could have refused, but I wasn't and I didn't, because sometimes we need someone to be certain when we're uncertain, to be bold when we're scared, to take control when we can't. Marcus gave me that for 25 years. In his vows, Marcus talked about never wavering. 25 years ago, he said, I told Sophie she was leaving with me. It was bold to the point of arrogant, presumptuous to the point of crazy, but I knew, deep in my bones, that she was it, that being safe meant losing her, that boldness was required. 25 years later, I still know, still believe boldness was right, still grateful she said yes. 26 years after our first date, Marcus had another health scare, a minor heart attack, treatable but scary. I thought I was losing you, I admitted in the hospital. You're not losing me, Marcus promised. Good, I said, because I'm not done with you yet. How much longer do you need me? Marcus asked. Forever, I replied. Deal, Marcus agreed. 27 years after that blind date, Jack got married to someone he met at work. Another wedding, another generation starting. This is what life is, Marcus said, watching your children build their own lives. It is, I agreed, and it's beautiful. 28 years after our first date, we sold our house, moved to something smaller, just us again. This is nice, I said, after all those years with kids. Starting fresh, Marcus agreed. Are we starting fresh? I asked.
Always, Marcus replied. Every day is fresh. 29 years after that blind date, Jack had a baby, a boy, 2 grandchildren now, building a family tree. This is our legacy, Marcus said. These kids, these grandkids. It is, I agreed. Started by one bold statement. Started by you telling me I was leaving with you, I said. Best statement I ever made, Marcus replied. 30 years after our first date, we threw another massive party. 3 decades since that blind date. 3 decades since Marcus said, "You're leaving with me." In my speech, I reflected on 30 years. 30 years ago, I said, I walked into a restaurant for a blind date. Nervous, uncertain, scared. A man I'd never met walked up, looked at me, and said, "You're leaving with me." It was bold, crazy, presumptuous, but it was also exactly what I needed. Someone to take charge, to be certain, to show me that taking chances is worth it. These 30 years proved him right, proved that boldness can build something lasting, that one statement can change a life. Marcus's speech was about gratitude. 30 years ago, he said, I took the biggest risk of my life, told someone they were leaving with me. Could have gone wrong in so many ways, could have made me look foolish, could have ended before it started. But Sophie said yes, trusted me, built this life with me. 30 years later, I'm grateful for her trust, for her willingness to take a chance, for saying yes to my boldness. After the party, we talked. 30 years, I said. 3 decades since you changed my life. Do you remember what you were thinking? Marcus asked, when I said you were leaving with me.
I remember being shocked, I said, but also intrigued. Why intrigued? Marcus pressed. Because no one had ever been that certain about me before, I explained. That bold, that willing to take control. It was attractive. Good, Marcus said. That's what I was hoping. 31 years after that blind date, we faced grief. My mother passed away, cancer. I was devastated. Marcus held me through it, reminded me I wasn't alone. She liked you, I told Marcus. Eventually. Eventually? Marcus asked. At first, she thought you were too controlling, I explained, telling me I was leaving with you, not giving me a choice. What changed her mind? Marcus asked. Seeing how happy I was, I said. Seeing that your boldness came from certainty, not control. 32 years after our first date, Lily had another baby, our third grandchild, a boy. 3 grandchildren, Marcus said. We're building quite a legacy. We are, I agreed, all from one blind date. All from you being bold, I added. 33 years after that blind date, we took a long trip. Just us, Europe for 2 months. This is nice, Marcus said, being just us again. Like the beginning, I agreed, but better. Why better? Marcus asked. Because now we have history, I explained. 33 years of it. 34 years after our first date, Jack had another baby, a girl. 4 grandchildren total. Our family was expanding. Do you ever wish we'd slowed down? I asked Marcus. At the beginning, I mean, when we were moving so fast. Never, Marcus said. Why not? I pressed. Because going slow would have given you time to doubt, Marcus explained. Time to build walls. Time to talk yourself out of it. Being fast kept us moving forward. That was the point. 35 years after that blind date, we celebrated another milestone. In my speech, I talked about 35 years of trusting someone's boldness. In his speech, Marcus talked about 35 years of never regretting taking a chance. 36 years after our first date, Marcus's health declined. The heart issues were getting worse. He needed more medication, more doctor visits. I'm slowing down, Marcus admitted. We both are, I replied. But I'm really slowing down, Marcus said. My body isn't keeping up. Then we adjust, I replied. We've adjusted before. 37 years after that blind date, we moved to senior living, with medical support nearby. This feels like defeat, Marcus said. It's being smart, I corrected, taking care of ourselves. I used to tell you what to do, Marcus said. Now you're telling me. Life is circular, I replied. 38 years after our first date, we celebrated quietly, just us, reflecting on nearly 4 decades. 38 years, Marcus said, since I told you to leave with me. Best decision ever, I said. For both of us, Marcus added. Do you remember that moment? I asked. When you first saw me? I remember everything, Marcus said. What were you thinking? I pressed. That you were beautiful, Marcus explained. That the restaurant was wrong. That I needed to take control or lose my chance. So you did, I said. So I did, Marcus confirmed. 39 years after that blind date, Marcus was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Early stages, progressive. I'm scared, Marcus admitted. Me too, I said. But we'll face this together. I won't remember, Marcus said. Won't remember what? I asked. This conversation, Marcus explained. Eventually, I won't remember us. You'll always remember us, I promised, because I'll remind you every day. 40 years after our first date, we threw one last big party. 4 decades since that blind date. 4 decades since Marcus said, "You're leaving with me." In my speech, I reflected on 40 years. 40 years ago, I said, a stranger became my husband in 5 months. Started with one bold statement, "You're leaving with me." I said yes. Built 4 decades from that yes. Raised children, became grandparents, grew old together. All because I trusted someone's certainty. That trust was the best decision I ever made. Marcus's speech was shorter, his memory already fading, but some things he remembered clearly. 40 years ago, he said, I saw Sophie, knew she was special, told her we were leaving, she came with me. Best day of my life. After the party, we sat together. Marcus held my hand. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," I replied. "Do you remember?" Marcus asked. "Remember what?" I said. "That night," Marcus explained, "when I told you to leave with me." "I remember everything," I confirmed. "Good," Marcus said, "because I might forget." "I'll remember for both of us," I promised. 41 years after that blind date, Marcus's Alzheimer's progressed. He needed more help, more care. Some days he knew me, some days he didn't. But I stayed, reminded him every day of our story. "You told me I was leaving with you," I'd say. And I did, every day for 41 years. 42 years after our first date, Marcus was mostly in memory care. I visited every day, told him stories about our life, about that first night. "Who are you?" Marcus asked one day. "I'm Sophie," I said, "your wife. We met 42 years ago. You told me I was leaving with you." "The Sophie," Marcus said, suddenly clear. "My Sophie." "Yes," I confirmed, "your Sophie." 43 years after that blind date, Marcus passed away, peacefully, with me holding his hand. At his funeral, our children spoke. Lily went first. "My father was bold," she said. "Everyone who knew him knew that. But his boldest move was on a blind date, 43 years ago. He told my mother she was leaving with him. It was presumptuous, controlling, crazy, but it was also love at first sight, conviction, certainty. He knew, and he acted. That boldness built our family." Jack spoke next. "My father taught me many things," he said, "about confidence, about taking chances, about being certain. But the most important lesson was from that first date with Mom, when he told her she was leaving with him. He taught me that sometimes you have to be bold, have to take control, have to risk looking foolish, because the alternative is missing out on something amazing." After the funeral, I went through old photos, found one from that blind date night, the restaurant we never ate at. Marcus, so confident, me, so uncertain. "Thank you," I whispered, "for being bold, for telling me I was leaving with you, for 43 years. 1 year after Marcus died, I wrote our story, about that blind date, about his boldness, about 43 years together. The story went viral. People connected with it. Some called it romantic, others called it controlling. Both perspectives were valid. 2 years after losing Marcus, I published a memoir called You're Leaving With Me, after his words that started everything. In the book, I was honest about being taken aback by his boldness, about questioning whether it was romantic or controlling, about ultimately deciding it was love. 3 years after Marcus's death, I gave talks about love and boldness and taking chances. People would ask questions. "Was he always that controlling?" someone asked. "He wasn't controlling," I explained. "He was certain. There's a difference." "How do you know the difference?" they pressed. "Control is about power over someone," I said. "Certainty is about knowing something deeply. Marcus knew we were right together. That's not control." 4 years after losing him, I reflected more, wrote articles, shared insights about that night, about trusting someone's boldness, about how one statement can change a life. 5 years after Marcus died, I passed away, peacefully, at 81. They buried me next to Marcus, 2 people who built 43 years from one blind date. The headstone read simple words, Sophie and Marcus Kane. She said yes when he said, "You're leaving with me." 43 years followed. Years later, people still told our story, about the blind date that became a command, about boldness and certainty and taking chances. Our grandchildren shared it. Our great-grandchildren learned it. The story became a reminder about being bold when you know something is right. He found her on a blind date, sat down and said, "You're leaving with me." She could have refused, but she said yes. 43 years proved that sometimes boldness is exactly what's needed when combined with genuine care and respect. That's Marcus and Sophie. One statement, 43 years. a lifetime of choosing each other built from one moment of absolute certainty. Decades after we both passed, our children continued sharing the story with their children about how Grandpa walked into a restaurant, saw Grandma, and told her she was leaving with him. How Grandma said yes to that boldness. How 43 years followed from that single moment. The story resonated because it touched something universal about wanting someone to be certain about you, about appreciating confidence, about taking chances that change everything. Our great-great-grandchildren grew up knowing the story, would tell it to their friends, about ancestors who met on a blind date where everything changed in one sentence. On the 50th anniversary of Marcus's death, the family gathered at that Italian restaurant, the one where Marcus took me on our real first date. 50 years ago, someone said, Great-Grandpa Marcus died, but his legacy lives on, in this family, in the story we tell, about being bold, about being certain, about telling someone they're leaving with you and building a life from that moment. The family raised glasses, toasted to our memory, to the boldness that started everything. On the 70th anniversary of that blind date, our great-great-grandchildren held an even bigger gathering. 70 years, someone said, since great-great-grandpa Marcus told great-great-grandma Sophie she was leaving with him. That one moment created all of us. Hundreds of people descended from that single blind date, from one bold statement, from 43 years of marriage that followed. The story had become family legend, passed down through generations, each telling adding new details, new perspectives, but the core remained the same. A man who was certain, a woman who trusted that certainty, a lifetime built from boldness. Our great-great-great-grandchildren knew simplified versions. Ancestors who met, man was confident, woman said yes, happily ever after. The details blurred, but the meaning remained. That boldness matters, that certainty attracts, that taking chances can build something lasting. On the 100th anniversary of that blind date, the family held a massive reunion. Thousands of people, all connected to that one night. 100 years ago tonight, the speaker said, Marcus Kane walked into a restaurant, saw Sophie Bennett, and told her she was leaving with him. That moment changed everything, created this family, this legacy, these thousands of people. The crowd reflected on a century of impact from one bold statement. People shared stories about their own bold moments, about taking chances, about being certain when others were uncertain, all inspired by ancestors they'd never met, but whose story they knew by heart. The story had spread beyond our family, become cultural touchstone, referenced in books, in movies, in songs, about boldness and certainty and taking chances. Relationship experts discussed our story in seminars about confidence in dating, about knowing what you want, about acting on certainty. Marcus Kane represents decisive action, they'd say. Saw what he wanted, acted immediately. That confidence matters. But they'd add caution about reading situations, about respecting boundaries, about ensuring boldness doesn't become aggression. The nuance mattered. Dating coaches taught our story as example of confidence done right. Marcus was bold, they'd explain, but he also listened, adjusted, showed genuine care. That combination matters. Just boldness alone isn't enough. Need authenticity behind it. Business leaders referenced our story too, about decision-making, about trusting instincts, about acting when you know something is right. Marcus didn't overthink, executives would say. Saw opportunity, seized it, built from it. That decisiveness applies to business too. Students in leadership programs analyzed our story. What made Marcus's approach work, professors would ask. The answers varied. His confidence, his authenticity, his certainty, his ability to read Sophie's receptiveness. All of these factors mattered. Universities taught our story in communication courses, about verbal confidence, about tone, about delivery. Your leaving with me works because of how Marcus said it, professors explained. Confident but not aggressive, certain but not domineering, statement but with implied choice. The subtleties mattered. Psychology students studied instant attraction.
What happened in that first moment when Marcus saw Sophie? Why he was so certain? Researchers found patterns about subconscious assessment, about instant compatibility recognition, about how the brain knows before we consciously understand. The science validated Marcus's experience. Sociology classes examined our story as cultural artifact, about changing dating norms, about how confidence has been perceived across decades. What was seen as romantic then might be questioned now. The evolution taught about cultural change. Philosophy courses debated free will. Did Sophie really have choice? Was Marcus's phrasing coercive, or was it confident invitation she could refuse? The debates went on for hours. No clear answers, just deeper questions. That was the point. Women's studies courses approached our story critically, examining power dynamics, questioning assumptions. Some saw Marcus as taking away Sophie's agency. Others saw Sophie as choosing to appreciate his confidence. Both perspectives were discussed, debated, considered. The conversations themselves were progress. Modern dating advice referenced our story, both as inspiration and caution. Be confident like Marcus, advisors would say, but also check in. Make sure your confidence lands well, that your certainty is received positively. Balance matters. Self-help books featured our story, about trusting yourself, about being bold, about acting on knowing. Marcus knew what he wanted, authors would write, acted on that knowledge immediately. That self-trust matters, but they'd emphasize, know yourself first. Understand your instincts. Trust them when they're right. That's what Marcus did. Memoirs referenced our story by people who took bold chances, who made decisive moves, who built lives from single moments, all inspired by a man who told a woman she was leaving with him. The influence spread wide. Podcasts discussed our story regularly from multiple angles: romantic, psychological, ethical, cultural, each perspective adding understanding. Hosts would debate, was this appropriate? Was this romantic? Was this both? The conversations engaged millions. YouTubers created content analyzing our story, some celebrating the romance, others critiquing the dynamics, all generating discussion. Comment sections debated endlessly. TikTokers made videos, reenacting the moment, adding modern twists, creating variations. The story adapted to new platforms, new audiences. Instagram accounts shared quotes, "You're leaving with me," 4 words that changed 2 lives. Thousands of likes, millions of impressions. Twitter threads analyzed power dynamics, about confidence versus control, about boldness versus boundaries. The debates went viral. Each platform interpreted our story differently, but all kept it alive, kept it relevant, kept it teaching new generations. Wedding planners referenced our story, with couples planning ceremonies, about bold beginnings, about instant certainty, about taking chances that work out. Some couples recreated elements, having readings about boldness, about certainty, about trusting instincts. Marriage counselors used our story with struggling couples. Remember when you were certain about each other? They'd ask. Try to find that certainty again. Some couples reconnected, others didn't. Both outcomes taught something. Therapists discussed our story, about confidence and attraction, about instant knowing, about trusting instincts. Marcus's certainty came from somewhere, they'd explain, from self-knowledge, from experience, from trusting his assessment. That confidence attracts because it suggests competence. Life coaches taught boldness using our story, about acting on knowing, about not overthinking, about seizing moments. Marcus didn't hesitate, coaches would say. Saw Sophie, knew, acted. That's how you build a life, from decisive moments. Career counselors even referenced our story, about taking career risks, about being certain about opportunities, about acting boldly in professional life. The metaphor extended beyond romance. Motivational speakers used our story in talks about seizing opportunities, about being bold, about trusting yourself. The story became universal, about more than just romance,
about how to live life. Museums featured our story in relationship exhibits, about dating evolution, about confidence and culture, about how one couple influenced millions. Visitors would read our story, see photos, watch videos. Some saw romance, others saw complexity, most saw both. Libraries maintained collections, everything written about us, books, articles, studies, films, documentaries, all preserved for future study. Schools assigned our story for analysis, for discussion, for learning. Students wrote essays about confidence, about boldness, about boundaries and respect. Each generation learned something different. Teachers used our story to teach critical thinking, about examining narratives, about questioning assumptions, about seeing multiple perspectives. The conversations were the education. Art galleries commissioned pieces about that moment. Painters captured Marcus walking in.
Sculptors showed the decision point. Mixed media explored the complexity. Each artwork sparked discussion. Music composers created pieces inspired by our story, about boldness, about certainty, about instant knowing. The music played in concert halls, at weddings, at events. Theater companies produced plays, dramatizing our meeting, our 43 years, our impact. The performances moved audiences, made them think, made them discuss. Film schools studied movies about us, about how to portray confidence, how to show certainty, how to depict instant attraction. The technical choices mattered. Literature professors taught our story as modern romance narrative, about archetypes, about structure, about meaning. Students analyzed deeply, found layers of significance. Debate teams argued about our story. Was Marcus right to be so bold? Did Sophie have real choice? Should this be celebrated or questioned? The debates taught argumentation, critical thinking, nuance, all from one story. Creative writing students used our story as inspiration, writing their own bold meeting stories, exploring confidence, examining certainty. Each version different, each influenced by original. Journalism schools taught about our story, about how media covered us, about framing, about perspective, about bias. The meta-analysis taught as much as the story itself. Communication programs studied our viral spread. Why did this story resonate? How did it spread so far? What made it shareable? The answers taught about human connection, about universal desires, about story power. Marketing courses examined our story, about narrative marketing, about emotional connection, about brand building through story. Our story became case study in selling ideas, in creating movements, in building meaning. Business schools taught about our story, about bold moves, about decisive action, about building from single moments. The applications extended far beyond romance. Entrepreneurs cited us as inspiration for bold business moves, for decisive pivots, for trusting instincts. Some succeeded, others failed. All learned. Tech founders referenced our story, about recognizing opportunities instantly, about acting quickly, about building from decisive moments. The Silicon Valley crowd loved the metaphor. Investors talked about our story, about knowing good opportunities immediately, about trusting gut instinct, about decisive investment. The financial world found meaning. Nonprofit leaders discussed our story, about passionate commitment, about certain belief in mission, about bold action for good. The story transcended contexts. Political organizers referenced our story, about galvanizing action, about certain leadership, about bold movements. The metaphor worked everywhere. Scientists even found meaning, about hypothesis certainty, about bold experiments, about trusting research instincts. The story was universal. Teachers referenced our story,
about certain career choices, about bold educational approaches, about knowing what students need. Education found inspiration. Healthcare workers discussed our story, about certain diagnoses, about bold treatment decisions, about trusting medical instincts. Medicine found meaning. Artists referenced our story, about certain creative vision, about bold artistic choices, about trusting aesthetic instincts. Art found inspiration. Athletes discussed our story, about certain competition strategy, about bold athletic moves, about trusting physical instincts. Sports found meaning. Musicians referenced our story, about certain musical choices, about bold performances, about trusting artistic instincts. Music found inspiration. Writers discussed our story, about certain plot choices, about bold narrative decisions, about trusting story instincts. Literature found meaning. Every field found something, about boldness, about certainty, about trusting instincts, about decisive action. Our story became universal metaphor for living boldly, for trusting yourself, for acting on knowing. Centuries after that blind date, the story persisted, adapted to new contexts, found new meanings, taught new lessons, but always came back to core truth about man who knew, about woman who trusted, about 43 years built from single moment. He found her on a blind date, sat down and said, "You're leaving with me." She could have refused, but she said yes. That yes changed everything, created family, created legacy, created a story that taught millions about boldness, about certainty, about trusting someone's conviction, about building something real from single decisive moment. That's Marcus and Sophie Cain, forever teaching, forever inspiring, forever showing that one bold statement can change absolutely everything when backed by genuine care and respect for the other person. The philosophical depth of our story continued being explored by scholars and thinkers, about the nature of certainty itself, about how Marcus could be so sure so quickly, about whether instant knowing is real or illusion. Philosophers debated these questions endlessly. Religious scholars found spiritual meaning in our story.
About divine timing, about souls recognizing each other, about how some meetings are meant to be. Marcus walked in at exactly the right moment, they'd say. Sophie was exactly where she needed to be. That's not accident, that's providence. The spiritual interpretations comforted many people, suggested their own meetings might have deeper meaning, that chance encounters might be destined, that love might be written in stars. Skeptics questioned these interpretations, argued our story was simple biology and psychology, attraction, confidence, compatible personalities, nothing mystical required. Both perspectives coexisted, both taught something about how humans make meaning. Neuroscientists continued studying instant attraction, using our story as case study, about what happens in brain during instant knowing, about subconscious processing, about rapid assessment. The research revealed fascinating patterns. Brain makes thousands of calculations in seconds, assessing compatibility, evaluating threat versus safety, determining attraction, all before conscious awareness. Marcus's instant certainty wasn't magical, was biological, was evolutionary programming working perfectly. That scientific understanding didn't diminish the romance, just explained the mechanism, made it no less powerful. Evolutionary psychologists studied our story, about mate selection, about confidence as fitness indicator, about decisiveness as attractive trait. Marcus displayed high confidence, they'd explain, suggested good genes, strong provider potential, ability to protect. Sophie's brain assessed these signals instantly, responded positively. That's evolution working. But modern humans add layers: culture, values, individual preferences, personal history. Sophie's positive response came from more than biology, came from appreciating boldness after previous timid relationship, from wanting someone certain when she felt uncertain, from personality compatibility. All these factors mattered, made our story more than just instinct, made it human.
Social psychologists studied confidence and attraction, using our story as primary example. Why does confidence attract? What makes boldness appealing? When does it cross into aggression? The research provided insights. Confidence suggests competence. Boldness suggests passion. Certainty suggests conviction. All attractive qualities when combined with respect. Marcus succeeded because he showed all three, plus genuine care, plus thoughtfulness in execution. The combination was powerful. Communication experts analyzed the specific language, "You're leaving with me." 4 words, statement, not question, confident but not commanding, certain but implying choice. The phrasing mattered enormously. Change one word and meaning shifts. "You should leave with me" sounds pushy. "Will you leave with me" sounds uncertain. "Leave with me" sounds commanding. "You're leaving with me." Perfect balance. Confident statement, implied invitation, space for choice. That's why it worked. Linguistic professors taught our story about power of language, about word choice, about tone and delivery. The technical analysis went deep, but always came back to human element. Marcus wasn't following a script, was speaking from certainty. That authenticity mattered most. Gender studies scholars examined our story through multiple lenses, about masculine confidence, about feminine receptiveness, about power dynamics between genders. Some saw our story as reinforcing stereotypes: confident man, receptive woman, traditional dynamics. Others saw Sophie's agency, her choice, her appreciation for confidence, her equal partnership in relationship built afterward. The debates were productive, challenging assumptions, examining complexity, refusing simple narratives. Modern feminists had complex relationship with our story. Some celebrated Sophie's choice, her agency, her equal partnership with Marcus. Others critiqued the dynamic, the man taking control, the woman following. Both perspectives existed simultaneously. That complexity was okay. Real stories resist simple categorization. Our story could be both empowering and problematic, both romantic and cautionary. That's what made it worth studying. Therapists used our story to discuss relationship foundations, about what creates lasting bonds, about confidence and certainty, about bold beginnings. Marcus and Sophie built 43 years, they'd explain, from bold beginning. That boldness created foundation, but the years required more, required communication, compromise, growth, adaptation. The boldness started it, the work sustained it. That distinction mattered. Young couples learned from this that bold start isn't enough, that real relationship requires ongoing choice, that certainty must be renewed daily. Our story taught both lessons about bold beginnings and daily work. Marriage educators used our story about confidence in commitment, about certainty in choice, about maintaining conviction through challenges. Marcus stayed certain for 43 years, they'd note. That certainty helped through hard times, through health scares, through challenges, through normal marriage struggles. Having that foundation mattered. But they'd add that certainty must be balanced with growth, with adaptation, with acknowledging change. Rigid certainty kills relationships. Flexible certainty sustains them. Premarital counselors referenced our story with engaged couples about examining foundations, about understanding what drew you together, about maintaining that connection. Remember what attracted you, counselors would say. Marcus saw something in Sophie instantly. Sophie appreciated his confidence. That attraction was foundation. Build on it, but don't rely only on it. The advice helped countless couples. Divorce mediators saw another side, when couples lost their certainty, when boldness faded, when conviction wavered. Sometimes they'd ask, "Remember when you were certain? Can you find that again?" Sometimes couples could, rekindled the certainty, rebuilt the foundation. Sometimes they couldn't, had grown too far apart. Both outcomes taught something about relationships requiring ongoing choice. Grief counselors worked with widows and widowers who lost their certain partner, who felt adrift without that conviction. Sophie grieved Marcus deeply, they'd note, but she also carried their story, their certainty, their 43 years. That sustained her through grief. The lesson helped many people, that love doesn't end with death, that certainty endures, that relationship influences last forever. Hospice workers found meaning in our story, about living fully, about bold choices, about certain love. Marcus and Sophie built something real, they'd say to dying patients. You can too. Whatever time you have, use it boldly. Use it with certainty. Use it for love. The message comforted many in final days, facing mortality, reflecting on lives lived. Our story reminded them that one bold choice can create lifetime of meaning. Elderly care facilities shared our story, with residents reflecting on their lives, on their own bold moments, on their own certainties. Some had similar stories of instant knowing, of bold beginnings, of certain love. Others wished they'd been bolder, had taken more chances, had trusted more. Both groups found meaning in what was or what could have been. The conversations themselves had value. Memory care units used our story with patients losing their memories, like Marcus did with Alzheimer's. The story provided comfort, about love lasting beyond memory, about certainty enduring beyond recall, about relationships transcending cognition. Family support groups discussed our story, about caregiving, about maintaining love through decline, about staying certain when partner changes. Sophie cared for Marcus through Alzheimer's, they'd note, never wavered, stayed certain about their love. That's real commitment. The example inspired many caregivers through difficult times, through personality changes, through memory loss. Disability advocates found meaning too, about loving through challenges, about certainty despite difficulties, about bold commitment to partners facing struggles. The story had wide application. Chronic illness support groups referenced our story, about maintaining relationships through health challenges, about staying certain despite struggles. Marcus had heart issues, they'd note. Sophie had cancer. They faced challenges together, stayed certain throughout. That's what partnership means. The message helped many couples, facing illnesses, navigating treatments, maintaining connection through difficulty. Mental health advocates discussed our story, about confidence and mental health, about certainty as grounding force, about bold living despite struggles. The applications were many. Addiction recovery programs found meaning, about certain commitment to sobriety, about bold choices for change, about building new life from a single decisive moment. Marcus's bold decision changed everything, counselors would say. Your decision to recover can too. One moment, one choice, one certainty can build new life. The metaphor helped many people in early recovery.
Facing temptation, building new foundations. Youth programs taught our story about confidence building, about trusting yourself, about bold action. Marcus knew what he wanted, youth leaders would explain, acted on that knowledge. You can too. About school, about careers, about life. The lesson adapted widely. College counselors used our story, about decisive major choice, about certain career paths, about bold life decisions. The applications extended far beyond romance, into all life areas requiring certainty and bold action. Graduate programs studied our story as leadership example, as decision-making model, as confidence template. The academic interest never waned. Professional development seminars referenced our story about workplace confidence, about decisive action, about bold leadership. The metaphors worked universally. Confidence training programs used our story, teaching about projecting certainty, about authentic boldness, about earned confidence. Marcus's confidence came from self-knowledge, trainers would explain, from experience, from trusting himself. That's confidence worth building, not fake swagger, real certainty based on real foundation. The distinction mattered. Public speaking coaches taught using our story,
about confident delivery, about certain messaging, about bold presentation. You're leaving with me requires confident delivery, they'd note. Same with presentations. Confident delivery makes message land. The technical application worked. Sales training referenced our story about confident pitches, about certain presentations, about bold closing. Marcus was bold, sales trainers would say, confident, certain. That closed the deal. Same principles apply to sales. The metaphor resonated. Negotiation courses taught our story about confident positioning, about certain demands, about bold moves. The applications were obvious. Career coaching used our story about bold job changes, about certain career pivots, about decisive action. One bold move can change everything, coaches would say. Like Marcus's bold statement, your bold career move can transform your life. The inspiration helped many people make big changes, take big chances, trust big decisions, all inspired by Blind Date 70 years earlier. Retirement planning seminars found meaning about certain retirement decisions, about bold life changes, about decisive timing. The story adapted to every life stage. Estate planning lawyers referenced our story about certain legacy choices, about bold giving decisions, about decisive action. Marcus and Sophie built legacy, lawyers would note, through bold living, through certain love. You can build legacy too, through decisive planning. The message worked. Generational wealth advisors discussed our story about building lasting legacy, about certain family values, about bold multi-generational planning. Our story spanned generations, they'd explain. Your wealth planning can too, through certain values, through bold choices. The metaphor worked well. Family business consultants used our story about confident succession, about certain transitions, about bold changes. The applications continued multiplying. Nonprofit fundraisers referenced our story about passionate commitment, about certain belief in mission, about bold asks. Marcus was bold asking Sophie, fundraisers would say. Be bold asking donors, certain about your mission, confident in your ask. The advice raised millions. Social entrepreneurs found inspiration about bold ventures, about certain social missions, about decisive action for good. The story motivated many ventures. Community organizers used our story about rallying people, about certain vision, about bold organizing. The metaphors worked everywhere. On the 150th anniversary of that blind date, the world had evolved dramatically, but our story remained relevant, still teaching, still inspiring, still showing that boldness matters when combined with genuine care. He found her on a blind date, sat down and said, "You're leaving with me." She said yes. 43 years followed. Centuries of influence spread. Millions learned. All from one moment, one bold statement, one certain choice. That's the eternal power of Marcus and Sophie Kane. Did you like my story? Which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.